Next up, you shook his hand on the way through, did you?
Yes.
So next up is Adrian Stevens. Adrian's a VP of Learning and Development at HPE, and before that held various learning roles at HPE, obviously in a global capacity. And Adrian's going to talk to us about the inevitability of change and the incredible opportunity it presents for us.
Thank you, Omar, for that warm welcome, and thank you, Kevin, for the ultimate frame to help build response potential from the room to be curious about what it is that I will share. And so clearly, I am excited that you're so excited to hear what it is that I have to share with you. And I'm also excited because it was just this time last year that I was literally sitting out in the audience at the second Future Learning Summit, listening to the thought leadership, the expertise, the bright ideas that were flowing off the stage and thinking, goodness me, what are we going to do with all of this insight? What can we do practically to help make a difference for a very young and new company? Now, some of you might be reflecting on my peculiar accent. It is a little bit different. While the Bay Area is home for me today, I'm actually from Sydney, Australia. Not sure if anyone's been to Sydney, Australia. Well, a handful. Okay, well, I'd encourage you to take the time to get across there. And for those of you that have, or those of you that might imagine yourself traveling there, you'll start to appreciate a couple of things about culture, Australian culture at that. And it's always been interesting to me. Australia, of course, is a British colony originally, and the British settled Australia. And at that time, as the young nation was being developed, they began to name the initial states. Just like the US, we have states. And the first state where Sydney is located, they called New South Wales. And most Australians today think back and go, why did they call it New South Wales? What was that all about? But clearly for the British, it was new for them at the time, and it was naturally south of Wales. Okay, logical. The second state, where Melbourne, the city of Melbourne is located, they named Victoria. Again, why Victoria? I think most of us have worked out that's kind of in reverence to the monarchy and their queen at the time. Understandable. The third state, Queensland. Okay, we sense a pattern here. Now, goodness for the British, they began to think about this new nation. How do we empower the people, help them form their own cultural norms, if you like? Let's give them the responsibility for naming the remaining states. So they got together after some deliberation, discussion, some inclusive dialogue. The Australians decided, well, we'll call the big mass to the south, South Australia. That big bit to the west, we'll call that Western Australia. And the territory to the north, that's the Northern Territory. Done. Clearly, they didn't muck around when it came to naming things. And so when you do get to Sydney, and I encourage you to go, should you want to take in some opera, then you'd naturally head down to the Sydney Opera House. If you want to cross the Sydney Harbour, you'd use the Sydney Harbour Bridge. If it's a bit of ocean life you're after, well, we've got the Great Barrier Reef for you. Skiing, snowy mountains, sand, we've got the Great Sandy Desert. You see the principles. How do we keep it simple, straight, and to the point? So when it came to thinking about what I could possibly share with you today, appreciating all the insight gathered last year, what was I going to call this thing? Do I keep it to the point and talk about how HPE is activating social and machine learning to help transform a culture? Or something more awfully vague like, change is inevitable, the opportunity incredible? So I thought I'd run with that for you. But listen, let's jump in. Because in the spirit of change, and we talked about HP, and what a marvelous case study almost the company is. Really, we've been around for a long time, 80 years coming up to. And really a company founded on a DNA of innovation. Started by Dave Packard and Bill Hewlett in a garage not too far from here, up in Palo Alto on Addison Avenue. The name decided with the toss of a coin whether it was going to be Hewlett Packard or Packard Hewlett. And off they went with the spirit of invention really driving all that they did. And not many people might recall or know this, but their first major product was a radio oscillator that Walt Disney used to help engineer and refine the sound for the release of the movie Fantasia. And that set them on a path. And since then, at the time, whether it be the commercialization of light-emitting diodes, LEDs, the shift to help track world time with the atomic clock, all the way through the revolution that was inkjet printing, rack-mount servers. We still get excited about that one. To more, I think, important things in terms of driving human progress. The compute power to map the human genome. More recently, memory-driven compute, which we call the machine. And just in the last month, you might have seen this, the launch of the space-borne computer in support of Elon Musk's SpaceX Dragon mission, resupply mission, to help progress the mission to Mars and the eventual colonization of Mars in time. So innovation clearly in the DNA of the company, but not just at a technology perspective, also from corporate culture's view. Some of you might have heard of the HP way, which was released in the 90s, and the principles that we often take for granted today, like management by walking around, really founded within the halls of their initial sites, company health insurance or company paid health insurance, stock allocations for employees, pay and profit, and so forth. So much that has influenced Silicon Valley and well beyond. And should you get down to the garage, I'm not sure, has anyone ever been to the garage out on Addison Avenue? It's an interesting experience. I'm not sure what yours is like, but I also get quite excited as an employee of the company, having spent 18 years there. But about a year ago, a good colleague of mine in Asia Pacific was placed as the head of sales for Salesforce. And he came into the Bay Area to go through the Salesforce orientation work. We thought we'd catch up. And he said, well, what should we do? And I said, well, let me take you around Silicon Valley. I'll take you to the HP garage. And my wife kind of rolled her eyes and said, hey, it doesn't work for HP. Is he really going to care? And Simon agreed, I don't work for HP. And I said, but Simon, your wife used to. You could go there, take a photo, and send it to her. Oh, okay, whatever, let's go have a look. Anyway, I get into the garage. He leaves out the car. I'm getting the kids out. And he's out there taking photographs, running around, looking at the inscription as a heritage site. He's absolutely huge. So I looked at my wife with a very much a told you so. She was a little puzzled. In fact, I was actually a little puzzled too. But I think what it represented for him was the foundations of what can be achieved, what is possible from very humble beginnings, if you simply have a mindset that is built around the possibility of innovation and what we heard yesterday around makers or making. So, a bit of context around HP, but I'm here to talk about Hewlett Packard Enterprise. So how did this all start? Separation, 2015, I think Kevin alluded to that. The largest corporate separation in history at that time, and the fastest, with the blueprints and dispositions across programs, procedures, processes, and people done in under a year. Quite a traumatic experience you might appreciate for many of the employees working there in terms of what that would mean, and which side of the separation they might potentially land on. I was a little inspired by some of the data we saw this morning in terms of learning experiences, and I think I saw in there things like separation and adjustments of that nature being one of the major contributors. Now, of course, the question is how do you tap into all those learnings and realign that energy into more positive, productive innovation moving forward? Big separations. So, of course, Hewlett Packard Enterprise was born. Many of you would know HP Inc. for the portfolio of printers and PCs, but on the enterprise side, we're really all about the expertise that we house that really helps our customers take advantage of the ever-evolving IT ecosystem that exists out there, and the dynamics between traditional data centers and the cloud, and of course, what really works through to the edge of their networks and the intelligent edge that exists today, so that they, as customers of ours, their enterprise can obviously interface appropriately with their consumers, their own employees, and really the world in almost unlimited ways. And we're only just getting started. We're 2 years in, and this year alone, 2 major divestitures to further simplify our portfolio, drive more adaptability, more focus, so we can respond more effectively to market and customer dynamics. But also 5 acquisitions. Like it never ends. And so the big question is, as we work through this, as a business leader who's driving and steering strategy, you can imagine how exciting this can get, right? Opportunities, the magnitude of what's possible. But what about our people? How are they feeling as we work through this? The lack of predictability, the consistent change, the constant reinvention, reorganization. There's no question, if you think about the last 2 years and the last 3 years, the 5-year turnaround really spurred by Meg Whitman as she took the helm in 2011. It's been an exhausting gauntlet, a melee, if you like, of adjustment. And with that comes the challenge of culture, the bolt-on of companies. What does our culture really represent? How do we feel coming to work every day? Is it still quiet as it was, as Kevin experienced it back in 2009 or 10, whatever that might have been? Or do we have some energy left to spare? What we do know is customers are excited. They want us to win. Our partners, when we acquire companies, notes like genius move by HP, strategic excellence in play. But in-house, what is the experience like? And so we knew we had some work to do, because employees were thirsty for sustenance, for support, and they were really demanding a solution. So, how can we do this? HP Next is a new cycle that we're moving into to continue to focus and refine what we do as a company, but also really a chance now to get our people back into the center of what it is that we stand for. Really tapping back into the grassroots that founded the company to begin with. With that, it's everything from the purpose of the company, allowing time for introspection with employees to think through what is it that we are really here to do? What's our broader contribution? why would I be excited to come to work each and every day and apply discretionary effort? It's about the strategy of the company, so everyone's clear in lay terms how we create value for our customers, so they can share that with partners, spouses, siblings, and more. The values, of course. What is it to work and play here? How do we create outcomes together? What is the right behavior to look at? And again, seeing what Microsoft has been doing around growth mindset, very compelling in terms of how setting the right intent and then integrating that into experiences we live and, I guess, repeat, can really drive proper change. And then people, of course, the impact we make. What is our value proposition for our own people? When we've been so focused on the business context, what is it that we can now begin to do to really establish almost a grassroots-like effort to re-engage, re-energize, almost reignite the hearts and minds of our people to create that fanatical enthusiasm for what we're about to achieve. And for us, from a learning perspective, how can we support this? What's our opportunity to have a seat at the table? How can we help cultivate renewed inspiration and aspiration? How do we support people to think through what new ideas they can draw on, new reference structures to really contribute to innovation? The inclusion considerations, how to really tap into the diversity of our population spread across all 3 regions of the planet. Collaboration, elevation of engagement, and that chance to really build in that more agile, adaptive, continuous learning philosophy and mindset across our company. Well, for learning development, this was a rich opportunity coming off the back of what we experienced here in this room just 12 months ago. We knew, of course, the philosophies around education, what we could do with facilitated insight and self-directed learning were possible. Experiences, we were good students of what was possible on the job with the right experience and exposure that we could cultivate. And now with that opportunity to create more space for reflection, put that into action. But where we had big gaps was our environment, the broader ecosystem, access to real, relevant, timely knowledge. How to get that into the hands of our employees just as they need it, it's close to the job and task at hand. So with that in mind, it was really about how could we activate the assets that existed to support learning in the company. I think you saw this quote a little earlier with respect to Lou Platt. That's one that really kind of galvanized our thinking. I was interesting because it did say about 3 times as productive. I had him as 3 times as profitable, and I think it's been quoted as both. I'm almost curious to know which was the original use of it, and maybe he did use it in multiple contexts. So for us, it was about personalized learning, more searchable materials, curated content, access to subject matter experts. How could we tap into it? We had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, almost millions, on some really potent learning assets that were some of the world's best kept secrets for our employees. So how could we give them the opportunity to stumble across these things and then capitalize that, share it with friends, socialize it? But also, equally, how can we tap into externally available content, like through YouTube, TED Talks, Forbes articles, and more, and layer that in a relevant way? And when we talk about subject matter experts, I love that SME Central that we saw earlier. How do we create pathways to get deeper exposure to things like the strategy, inclusion and diversity topics, corporate onboarding, Meg Whitman herself, and more? Well, EdCast clearly came into play, and the opportunity for us to experiment a little. So we invited them in and began a pilot process which really lasted about 6 months. And we looked at a couple of target groups. Leaders, of course, around 2,000 participants in total across the pilot. But these were tenured leaders, not millennial leaders that you might expect to really gravitate to an ecosystem like this. These are more leaders with 5 to 10 years of experience on the job. Early career hires, we of course did include IT, learning and development naturally, and onboarding was woven in because of the acquisitions we were doing. We wanted to see whether this would work with newly acquired companies, pre-boarding them before they actually even arrived on our doorstep to start to build their own levels of anticipation or excitement about what it might be like to work at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and the way we perceive the value of the acquisition and the combined strength we bring to market together. Results. It was actually a very pleasant surprise. I like to say I'm a ideas guy, willing to experiment, but at the heart of it, I'm also quite skeptical. I wasn't really sure. I needed some proof points to feel more certain, more confident. So as we looked at the outcomes of this after 6 months, we conducted various surveys and point checks, but for our leaders, these are the leadership results for those tenured leaders that were a part of the pilot. Their learning experience over that 6 months, those that had been engaged in the pilot, 71% said it had been favorable, compared to just 37% of the control group or those that had not had access to our new ecosystem. And equally, when it came to learning technology and tools provided by HPE that meet my needs, 82% had said that it's favorable, again, relative to the control group who had not exposure to it, that sat at just 55%. In both instances, statistically significant outcomes. And this was, I guess, correlated or replicated across the other partner groups that we engaged in or worked with. 5x the activity engagement levels that we've seen relative to our traditional learning ecosystems. So this was clearly exciting. Lots of anecdotes in terms of the commentary and unsolicited emails. People were feeling like we actually cared and we were making an investment in them. What was remarkable is we really hadn't done much. I would almost go as far as to say, our team here, I know we've discussed this, it was like a half-baked effort. We hadn't done a lot of structure or architecture around channels, for example. We were just throwing in articles and TED Talks left, right, and center. No real thought of governance in terms of what we were doing. It was a grand experiment. So to get this type of reaction just with that level of effort, we feel very excited about what's now possible as we move forward and gear up for enterprise-wide launch on the 1st of November. So we talked about what's in a name, trying to be as direct as possible. What's in a name? Everything. And so I think I might be a little ahead of my skis here because we're going through branding and legal approvals. But our intent is to ideally launch on the 1st of November with Compass. And the value in terms of the meaning is that both a noun and a verb, we feel correlates well to help, I guess, inspire employees to want to get engaged, to help create new paths for themselves, to begin to reskill, find new directions, or I guess get themselves back on track with a map that we can provide for them. Meg Whitman's main call to action in our last all-employee meeting was, the one thing she wanted us to do and do more of was to continue to take smart risks, but learn fast, adapt, find a way, and try again. So we feel we as a learning function have an opportunity to contribute to this cultural transformation by adjusting the environment and the ecosystem we're providing, to make it more personalized, more searchable, curated, and really of more value to really help employees to feel that, hey, it's worth the discretionary effort, I'm supported, I've got access to insights to propel me, let's give this a shot, let's keep moving, let's re-energize, re-invigorate, re-sustain ourselves, and get back into it. So team, I think I'm on time, but what I wanted to share, clearly in the midst of cultural transformation here at HPE, I love Kevin's reminder of the importance of that, and I wish you luck in distilling all you hear over the rest of the day, from what you heard this morning and yesterday, and thinking through how you can put that into action in support of your team, your organization, and fundamentally the people that you support. Thank you.